right, guys, thanks so much for being on the show today. So, do you want to tell everyone a little bit, your names and a little bit about yourselves?
Okay, do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so Erik Orton.
Emily Orton.
Emily Orton. And we are authors right now, that's what we're doing. And we recently released a book, 7 at Sea, which talks about the year when we sailed with our 5 children for a year. We live in New York City. We flew from New York City to the Caribbean where we picked up our boat and fixed it up there. And basically spent the next year, this was 2014, journeying home back to Manhattan. And that's sort of what we're about right now. I worked in the theater industry in New York for about 10 years, managing Broadway shows and tours. And we've done a bunch of other things besides that to make a buck, so we're happy to talk about any aspect of that.
Cool, I love that. Something I think is super phenomenal that I bet a lot of people are asking about. You guys went and sailed, you lived on a boat for a year, sailing around. I feel like for a lot of entrepreneurs, you know, you have books like The 4-Hour Workweek and stuff, and that's kind of like what's glamorized with like entrepreneurship. That's like kind of everyone's dream, like, well, someday I'll just be able to leave it all and I'll just take off on a boat. But you guys lived that dream. For you, what was the inspiration or motivation? What made you guys want to do that?
First of all, I love the word that you made up, glamorized, like glamorizing and advertising. It's just stellar. Do you want to speak to that, or?
Well, I guess I think it came from a lot of different places, and some of it was like, we were definitely had our heads in the 4-Hour Workweek, and we were reading about it. And one of the things that Tim Ferriss talks about is, like, do you want the money or do you want the thing that the money can buy? And we realized that we could just leapfrog the money piece and go straight to kind of the lifestyle that we were hoping to get and get there a little quicker. But it didn't start out as like a big plan. It started out just as a little idea, a curiosity, something that Erik wanted to do. He wanted to learn. He was at that time. Well, he had made a bid. Why don't you tell about your show and then? Because
this story starts with a business failure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I had worked on a series of big Broadway shows. I'd kind of fallen into this niche where I was managing big tours of musicals.
Okay.
So Les Miserables, Phantom of the Opera, Wicked, and then I left Wicked because I really wanted to branch out on my own, make my mark, and I raised a bunch of money and was producing my first off-Broadway show.
Okay.
And because my partner was out of town and we were lagging behind on the fundraising, I felt like I really needed to step up and commit 100% to do right by my investors and to just give this show the best chance of success. So I quit my job on this very stable, successful show to do the risky thing, and it bombed.
Oh, no.
It was just, it was right when our 4th child was being born.
Okay.
Actually, Emily was due opening night, and he came the day after opening. So we got to open the show and have the party. But then while we were, I told my partner, I said, I'm taking 24 hours off to just go be with my wife while we have this baby. And when I came back, she said, I have bad news. We've posted a closing notice for the show.
Wow.
And I just thought, you don't do that without me, first of all, even if we're having a baby. Because for me, everything was riding on this. I mean, she was very successful. She had distribution checks coming in from Les Miserables and Phantom of the Opera. And, financially, it wasn't a hit to her the way that, because for me, this was everything.
Right, you quit your job, you were 100% in it.
Yeah, so I scrambled. I tried to get advertising and marketing partnerships cobbled together, but nothing was going to come in fast enough to carry us. We were going to run out of money. So the show closed.
Can I just say that I was actually really impressed? I mean, fortunately, I was doing...
My business failure?
Yeah, no, fortunately, I was doing well. So, I was home, 19 hours after I left, right? To have...
You were healthy.
Yeah, we were all fine. We were all good. And we could just, turn our attention to this thing that was falling apart. In our faces, we were like, why couldn't we just wait, 10 hours, or something before making a unilateral decision? But... you just hustled so much. You had JetBlue on the phone. You were gonna advertise to incoming flights. We were gonna try to really save this thing, and I was really proud. And it was a heartbreak for all of us when it just wasn't lining up with the timeline to save the show. So the whole family was in it. We were all in it.
So all that is true. And to get to your original question about going sailing. So I was embarrassed, humiliated. I just wanted to disappear.
Right.
And we lived off of, I had some small investments in Broadway shows that brought us in some money from time to time. But it was clear that I had to go back to work.
Okay.
And I did not want to go back to work for somebody else.
Right.
Especially, I felt like I couldn't show my face in the theater industry, just out of pure ego and pride.
Okay.
Well, you did show your face.
Oh yeah. I was actually, I agreed to do this article for Crane's Business New York, which is a magazine that most people, I'd never heard of it.
Okay.
But it's a big, like tabloid size newspaper that gets printed in New York, and it's all business magazine, all business topics. And they were doing a roundup article on why the off-Broadway business model was broken. And I agreed to do the interview, and then I agreed to a photo shoot. And so a few weeks later, I ended up on the cover of Crane's Business, off-Broadway at Tragic Point. So I was literally the poster boy for failure.
These
shows. Here's Erik and his show, here's why the business model is broken, and so I'm just thinking, so this is where I'm at.
Right.
So that was how I showed my face.
Right. His friends were like, Cranes, really?
Yeah. So I just go, I get a temp job.
Uh-huh.
I work in the financial services industry as a contractor. I'm working nights so that I can have my days free to do something else, creative. But I just wanted to have an anonymous job where nobody could find me. I didn't want people to know what I was doing. I kind of just wanted to drop off the map, which is essentially what I did. Even though we didn't move, you can do that in New York.
Okay, gotcha.
And so I'm working in this high-rise downtown in the financial district, and I go for my sort of evening walk to sort of heal my soul. I go down along the Hudson River at night, and I'm just walking back and forth, and that's when I start to see these sailboats that are going up and down, and I feel like there's something in that would be restorative, that would be healing. Like if I felt so out of control in my life in terms of business and finance. I was like, sailing a boat, yes, there's weather and wind, but it's like it would be just me, and and ideally my family. But I decided I wanted to learn how to sail, and I realized that the sailing school where all these boats were coming from was directly downstairs from where I worked.
Okay.
So I walked in, even though I felt completely out of place because I didn't grow up sailing. We were broke at this point.
And we didn't drink. It felt like there was after you sail, everybody gets together and drinks, and we were
well, it's like the yacht clubs with all the rich people.
Yeah, exactly. You think about a yacht club, and now that we've been to a number of yacht clubs, you realize that it's just just a bunch of people who like sailing, and a lot of them like drinking. But so I felt very out of place. Like this was not my crowd, but I was curious enough, and Emily encouraged me, so they said, we can arrange a class for you, but because of my weird work schedule, they said, you have to get a group of 4 together so that we can do it at a time that works for you.
Okay.
And that's when I recruited Emily and our 2 oldest girls, who were 9 and 11 at the time, and that's how our sailing began. And it just grew from there.
It started to spread because he couldn't find anybody else. I really wanted it to just be something that he did for himself, by himself. Because I was really scared of deep water, and I try to be supportive and try to be there. It was their opening night, 9 months pregnant, but I did not want to get on the water in that way. And one of the first things we learned in that class is that we all get seasick.
Oh, nice.
So one of the things I love about the fact that we all get seasick is because people will say to us, oh, well, I can never do that because I get seasick. And I love to take those excuses away. I'm like,
she's very mean.
What other awesome thing are you not going to do because there's a hard part?
Right.
And so we learned to sail, and we decided to go out without an instructor, and once again it was just a huge screw up. We got this little boat, no motor even, and all our family now, 3 kids who've never been on a boat, and none of them really want to be there, and they're all scared. But we went out there, and we're just kind of flopping around, and kids are screaming. And the worst is that this was in Toms River, New Jersey, and some of the other people on speedboats were literally pointing at us and laughing. So we knew they were laughing at us. It was put the things together, and we're I know what's going on here. Anyway, I just feel that we had so many obstacles, and we were just not good at any parts of it from the get-go. But anytime you're gonna learn something new, you always start from not knowing.
Uh-huh.
And so I love that we were able to like stick with it, persist, find small wins, and eventually we signed up for one of these clubs and we started going out as a family on these little boats, just like 3-4 times a month.
Mm-hmm.
And we really loved what that felt like. No cell phone, looking each other in the eyeballs, singing. Everybody gets a turn to steer. You see what happens to your kids when they're steering or they're navigating. It's really, really cool. And so then Erik one day had this idea. It was pretty quiet in our apartment, and everyone's home all the time because we homeschool.
Okay.
And he said, I think the 7 of us on a sailboat would be enough universe for me. And I was like,
You got it.
Apparently I had said the most romantic thing I'm ever going to say.
oh my gosh. So I had all these crazy questions, but I feel like, I don't know what kept me from asking them all in that moment. And
Panic.
Yeah, that like, well, like, oh, how are we going to pay for it? What about friends and school clubs and, all the stuff? And what about our apartment and medical? And, we have a child with special needs, what about that? And I didn't say any of that stuff. I just said, when do you want to go? And I think that's the moment when it went from an idea to a goal, because it suddenly had like this timeline, this definition, and it was like, I want to go for a year before our oldest leaves for school, and now the urgency kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of...
So that was when you decided, like, you have, 1 year left and it's time to do it. So I feel like with, like, a lot of people, and I'm sure you're about to say this in your story, but, like, especially with entrepreneurs, a lot of people feel like this kind of experience is, like, the end goal. Like, someday when I finally have made it, I'm going to sell my business at 65 and I'm retired and go on a big sailing trip in my life. What do you say to those people about, like, you guys doing it now or choosing that as your time to go?
I would say that's one way to do it, but it's by no means the only way to do it, because we know people who have done things that way, where they build a business and they sell it for a big payout, or they take their company public and they have kind of a windfall. And in fact, one of the families that we followed, because part of developing this idea was I would start to find blogs and YouTube videos of families that are living on boats. And one family, we're the Ortons, and I found this British family called the Nortons.
Okay.
And they were doing this thing, and we started to follow their journey. And he had just sold his business, and I don't think he was 65, but they had 4 kids, and there was a lot of affinity. And so they were doing it, and they had a lot of cash on hand. And so they're throwing a big party that's like catered with a,
ice cream truck,
bouncy house and an ice cream truck, and they're custom building their boat, and they're going all the way around the world.
Do they have a lagoon?
It was an oyster. They actually had a monohull.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a monohull oyster. And so I knew that ours wasn't going to look like that. Our trip wasn't going to look like that. And yet I'm reading all these blogs, and one of the blogs that I read, and I don't think we've talked about this for a long time, was this couple. They had this fixer-upper boat that they had just gotten out of a junkyard essentially, and the wife got cancer. Like, they'd always dreamed of going to the Caribbean and sailing, and they had a little girl, but they kind of thought, oh, wait till later, and then she got cancer.
Wow.
And they said, okay, we don't have the luxury of time anymore. We have to do this now, or it's not going to happen.
Right.
And so they got the boat, and it was a modest boat, but they got it in good enough shape to do the trip, and they sailed from New England down to the Caribbean and back, and they took 9 months to do it. And they did it on a shoestring, and they had the most amazing experience. And so you can do the version where you're going to build your custom yacht and have the ice cream truck, and you order all the gizmo bells and whistles for your boat, and you stay at all the nice marinas, and you do all, you can do it the expensive way, or you can do it the way that's going to happen now. Right. And so we've, I guess one moment that we joke about is we were in the Bahamas, and there was this mega yacht. There's this famous place called Thunderball Grotto, and there's around the bend is kind of this place called Pig Beach, where they have the famous Bahamian pigs that hang out on the beach and swim, and
Okay.
all the brochures for them.
Magazines,
Yeah.
They're
I've
not
seen
as cute in real life.
Oh, really?
They're scary in real life.
A little bit freaky. So there's this big mega yacht with like from 3 stories tall, and there's this slide, like an inflatable slide that comes down the side for kids or adults or whoever wants to slide off the very top floor of this mega yacht into the ocean. And we're there on a 38-foot catamaran, 4 cabins with our 5 kids, and we're kind of crammed in. We're the biggest family on the smallest boat out there. But we're looking at the same sunset. We're swimming in the same beautiful water. We're enjoying the same breeze.
We're running away from the same pigs.
And so I guess back to your original question of, the traditional model is, you build a business, you work, and then you hit retirement. My question is, what if you don't have all those years?
Mm-hmm.
I know that in the course of my life, I have a finite window when my kids are with me.
Totally, yeah.
I plan to make my big money after my kids are gone.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is a treasure and a time that is only for now.
Totally.
And our youngest is 11.
Yeah.
And so in 7 years, that window is closed.
Right.
No matter what, no matter how much money I make in year 8, and no matter how free to go I am, my kids are gone.
Right.
And they might come back, but they might have a husband, or they might be working on a degree, or they might just be somewhere else, and they're going to run their own lives. But for us, we wanted to do this with our kids. And so to do that, we chose to do it lean. And I've hung out with and read and talked with enough people that believe in the mini retirement.
Mm-hmm.
So, take off a few years,
right,
do your thing, do it on a shoestring, go back to work.
Yeah.
We think that it has to be this one continuous thing of job continuity. You don't want to have any holes in your resume, when in fact, we found that I had this big gaping hole where I disappeared for a year and went sailing, and everyone's really excited whenever they come across that. If I'm applying for a job, that's what they want to talk about, is when I wasn't working.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm rambling on a little bit.
No, big Tim Ferriss concept there too. He talks about that a lot in his book. It's why would you spend the best years of your life working when you can have the option to go on and off and take those mini vacations throughout the whole thing? For you guys, what was motivated you or made you guys want to do a full year? Because some people are we'll go for a month or 2, we'll rent out a boat or something. What made you hey, we're buying a boat, we're going for a year, we're doing the big trip?
Well, I could say what I think it was, and then maybe you can correct me, and that would be fun for our it's like the newlywed game.
She's always right.
Well, I think to answer the last question, it was what is your wealth? So you ask that question, what is your wealth? And is it presumptuous to assume you'll have time and health in your future? Because a lot of people presume that, and what we saw as we looked around was well, what happened to their knees? Or, the physical ability wasn't there, even though the money and the desire was there. You have to have the money, desire, and the ability to be able to do some of those dreams, and there's just no guarantee. And we thought, well, what if we do it now, and then we're still able to later? We'll do it again.
Right.
We're not going, but we don't want to miss this chance with our kids. And I feel we wanted to go for a chunk because we really wanted to experience living that way. I think we originally anticipated covering a much longer distance. We just did 2,500 miles. We learned that you actually go really slow, and we didn't know that when we started. We were we're gonna go here and here and there and that, and so there was a lot we had to learn, which we're glad that we got to learn. But also, just financially speaking, some of the facts were we tried to buy an inexpensive boat, but it was old and it was custom, and nobody wanted to insure it because there were no comparables. So what they wanted is something newer, mass produced, insurable, more expensive. And so we actually were let's buy a more expensive boat, because part of our exit strategies, we're then going to sell it, and the person who buys it is going to also need to be able to get the insurance and the loan or whatever to get a mortgage on the boat. So that was part of it, and we thought we could have rented a boat for a couple of months, and I think it would have cost us the same by just renting somebody else's boat, as if we got to spend this whole time, because we bought it, used it as much as we wanted, and then sold it at the end. And we also had the opportunity to extend, right? We could have chosen to stay out longer. that was a big question in the book that we wrote, which way we were going to go. But that's part of why I think we did it. We would have liked to have stayed out longer, but in the end, it finished exactly the way it was supposed to.
Well, I think, in fairness, in the book we talk all about how we bought the boat, and if people want numbers, all the numbers are in there.
Cool. Okay. What's the name of your book, by the way?
It's called 7 at Sea.
7 at Sea. Okay.
And 7atsea.com is where you can get all the information.
Okay, we'll try to put a link in the bio of the YouTube video.
So, in fairness, we had eased up to this year by doing longer and longer trips, because I would say, I kind of stepped away from the theater and entertainment industry for a while, but I had this script and it was being turned into a movie. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, well, I had my sort of stable banking job. Mm-hmm. I called it my disposable job, and I think every job should be considered disposable, because that is not why we're here on the earth. Right. And so I had my disposable job, but I also had this thing that I really cared about that was going into production, and I said, well, and then one of my work colleagues took off a few months to go to Europe to tour. He had a dance company, mm-hmm. and then he disappeared for 3 months and was touring Europe with his dance company, and he came back and I was like, where did you go? He's like, I got a leave of absence. And I was like, tell me more, And he said, they didn't pay me during that time. They kept my medical benefits in place. And I was like, I want to try that. So I was like, my show is going into production. I said, can I have a leave of absence? And they said, okay. So I was like, this is awesome. They didn't pay me, but I was getting some money for the show. And so financially, we came out a little ahead, And so that was 2 months. And then a friend of ours who has, she has rental properties in Cape Cod, and nothing happens in Cape Cod after Labor Day. Okay. And so she's like, they're just sitting there empty. I'm not going to close them down until October. So if you and your family want to go, they're just sitting there. And she was a Broadway producer friend of mine. And so we're like, let's do it. And so we were taking, we'd go for a month or two, and eventually 2 months. And so we were doing these trips. And we found that by stepping out of this flow of normal work and routine and earning money, that we started to, as we kind of it's like being on the freeway and you pull off over to the side, and you can pull off over to the side, or you can get off at a rest stop, or you can just get off and just go a whole different way. Mm-hmm. And we just found that the more we got off this freeway, the more our minds started to open up to different possibilities and different ways of living, different ways of thinking about money, different ways of earning. And so we actually believe that it's important to go for long periods of time, because you have to really extract yourself from, there have been years and years of subconscious influence that shape how we perceive ourselves and the world and how things function. And when you're able to completely step out of that and look around while everything else is moving and you're standing still, then you really get to decide whether you think this is the best way, could it be another way, is this what I want for me? And I think the longer period of time, the better the opportunity for assessment. Mm-hmm.
Minimum 3 days, I would say. For your brain to actually. A long weekend
is the best place to start. then a week, and then a month, and then a quarter, and then a year.
And I'd say one of the best things that changed for us is in the beginning you were always looking for a career path. You're always like, oh, I need a career path, or what's the next move, and what's my resume going to look like? And when we stopped caring about the resume and just started worrying about the obituary, things got really interesting, and the work got more interesting, and we were like, when I die, will a cool movie flash before my eyes? Will I be excited to see the movie of my life? The movie of my life, and so a lot of things will come along and disrupt you, and this trip was one of the ones that we just chose. We want to disrupt ourselves. We think it will make us stronger as a family. We were both turning 40 that year, and we really felt like this was going to be like an intermission where we reassessed everything. And the subtitle of our book is why a New York City family cast off convention for a life-changing year on a sailboat. And I didn't want to just throw that term around for hype. It changed our lives, because we went in scared, right? We went in hoping our philosophy was right. We hoped time was more valuable than money. You know,
right.
We hoped that making our kids our reason to go rather than an excuse not to go, and was going to pay off with family memories. We hoped we would learn things about ourselves and shift and change, but we didn't know what that gap was going to look like, how people would respond, how we were going to earn money again. And so it's fun to talk about it now and be like, oh yeah, don't worry about the gap, because we're on the other side.
People that are going to make that leap.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay on the other side.
But we came through it, and we were like, wow, we learned so much that I wouldn't trade for anything. Like, first of all, good memories are the only investment guaranteed to always increase in value over time.
Mm-hmm.
And we learned, we have 3 kinds of confidence for us. First, I'll say what the kids learned. Our 15-year-old at the time said, well, I learned to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
What else do I want to give my kid who's
That's
going out
amazing.
into the world,
yeah,
right?
For real.
And our 17-year-old at the time said, I don't think it changed who I am, but I think it made me more myself. Again, those 2 things. For us, we felt the 3 kinds of confidence were the confidence that comes from competence, like just from learning a new skill, whatever it is, wherever you are.
Mm-hmm.
Credibility, because we did what we said we were going to do, and I think even if we fell flat on our face,
we get points for trying.
We decided amongst ourselves that if we never recovered from this risk, we would always be glad we did it. So we just went.
Super cool.
And then the last was that we learned along the way that things would emerge. There was always some problem coming up that we didn't know the answer to, but as we got closer to it, just like getting closer to an island, which we did over and over again, the details start to fill in, and we were able to solve the problems as we went. And so that's a kind of confidence that lets you know you can just get moving.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to have control. So like you said in the beginning, that living on a boat, you felt like, oh, I'm out of my life over here is beyond my control, and if I live on a boat, like I'll have more control. And actually, it was just us as the decision makers, which is the kind of control maybe you were referring to. But we learned a lot about just forget about control
in general,
and now you are empowered.
Totally.
And it's so hard when you live it every single day. You're like, okay, all right. And so since the boat, we do not burn very much energy worrying, but we try to put it all into like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen. I wonder what's going to come up. I'm curious how we're going to solve this problem.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more mental clarity and emotional stamina.
Yeah, worry has become wonder
Mm-hmm.
and curiosity rather than worry and anxiety.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, so obviously that is like the most phenomenal trip of your life for you guys, for your children, for what you learned, for what you can take forward into your career, into business and everything. Talk to me about your book. I'm super interested. What inspired you guys to want to write a book about this experience?
Yeah, we did not intend to write a book.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't our initial goal. We journaled while we were out there, and we blogged just for ourselves and to share it with friends. But the book really came up once we got back.
Okay.
Because as I would run into friends, especially if when you get home, everyone's like, so are you going to write a book?
Yeah.
Well, maybe.
What
But then, 6, 7, 8 months later, I'm taking a road trip or I'm out somewhere, and I'm seeing people that I haven't seen for a while, and they're like, so when's the book coming out? And it's still fresh for them. And I'm like, I've moved on with my life. I'm like, I'm trying to earn money again because we kind of zeroed out our accounts doing this thing, and everyone kept asking about a book, and I eventually came to feel like this is actually really important. I think it's going to help us understand what happened and really articulate the lessons that we learned, because we felt like we learned some stuff, but we didn't really know how, or we didn't really know what yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt like it would articulate it for us, and it would be something that we could leave for our children and would be sort of a legacy.
Yeah.
But then we also thought this might connect with and encourage other people that are trying to do maybe not the same thing, but something similar.
Totally.